This is a meeting of the Judiciary Committee of the Wilmette Village Board. Staff liaison, if you would please call the roll.
Chair Jaya.
Here.
Trustee Sullivan.
Here.
Trustee Barrow.
Here.
All right, we're all here. This meeting is being conducted remotely via Microsoft Teams software. The state of Illinois is still under portions of a stay-at-home order, which was issued by Governor Pritzker as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And as a result, all in-person meetings of the village have been canceled, although that will change shortly. The state has amended the Open Meetings Act to permit electronic meetings, and we are conducting our business in compliance with state law and the Open Meetings Act. This meeting is being broadcast live on the village's YouTube page, and a recording of the meeting will be archived on the village's website. A remote meeting requires a different mechanism for public participation. So to ensure that our residents and other interested parties have the opportunity to participate in this meeting, we have solicited public comment via email. So if you sent an email to publiccomment@wilmette.com at least 2 hours prior to the start of this meeting, our staff has shared your comment with members of the committee. If your comment was received within 2 hours of the meeting, it will be included in the meeting minutes. Members of the public watching via YouTube Live wishing to comment during the designated public comment period may submit comments through the chat feature on YouTube Live, and a member of the village staff will read your comment. For those who have connected via Microsoft Teams or telephone and wish to address the committee, I will ask people to speak up when it is time for public comment. Due to logistics, I will first ask someone to identify themselves if they would like to address the committee, and we will then assemble the list and call on the individual person by person. For people who choose to speak, I would like to remind you that you have 3 minutes. Comments from the public, no matter how they were received, will be recorded into the meeting minutes as we typically do. So with our meeting introductions complete, I'm going to move to item 2 on the agenda and seek a motion from the committee to approve the minutes, the amended minutes of the Judiciary Committee meeting of May 19th, 2021.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, can I have please a roll call on approval of the minutes?
Trustee Barrow.
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan.
Aye.
Chair Jaya.
Aye. Great. Okay, moving along to item 3 on the agenda. So what we'll do is start with a motion to recommend to the village board approval of an ordinance amending the village code to create a new Class F liquor license for Smash Rabbit LLD DBA Fat Shallot. Mr. Stein, did I get that right?
Fat Shallot LLC, yeah, doing business as Fat. I'm sorry, Smash Radish doing business as Fat Shallot. Yes.
Okay. And it's a Class F liquor license.
Class F. It'll be a Class F1 is what we're proposing.
Okay. So if we could have a motion for this.
So the motion would be to recommend an ordinance amending the liquor control portion of the village code to add a Class F1 liquor license.
And just to be clear, this is a recommendation to the village board. This is not actually a decision today. This is simply a recommendation from the committee to the village board.
That's absolutely correct. It's right, just a recommendation.
Mm-hmm. Your motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Seconded.
Great. So we can start discussion, and maybe the best way to start today would be for Mr. Stein to give us a little background, and then I think we have some other people who are going to maybe give us some additional comments.
Yes, thank you, Chair. For the second time in the last couple of weeks, we have a request for a new category of liquor license. We haven't had one for years before this, so we're on a roll. This one's a little different, though, again, of course, because it's a new liquor license, and therefore it didn't, obviously the proposed use did not fit into any existing liquor license that we have. And while not like the last one, not because the business concept is different, but mostly because who it is that's asking for it and the location of where it's being at. So this is based upon the Wilmette Park District's request with a use license that they have with the Fat Shallot to provide alcohol, food and alcohol at the snack shop, which is located on Wilmette Park District property at the beach. So essentially, though, this is very similar to other restaurant or other uses, like because it's a restaurant. it may be limited in some of the food it's giving and doesn't necessarily have seating, but it is serving food along with alcoholic beverages like many of our other liquor licensees do. The difference is the time of the year that they're wishing to do it and the location and the fact that there is no actual seating inside a quote unquote restaurant, but rather outdoor seating. So looking at our village code, going back and seeing what kind of licenses we have, I knew we had one already with the Park District. The Park District currently has a Class F license, which is specific to allowing the sale of alcohol at its restaurant or at its club at the golf course. And in that liquor license, it's issued to the Park District, but also the ordinance gives the authority to the Liquor Control Commissioner, who is President Plunkett in this case, to issue it a similar license to anybody that's under contract with the Park District, ultimately making that party the responsible party. So that's why I felt that a Class F1 license, instead of creating a Class V, a brand new one, was appropriate here. I think we still would allow, and we should allow, that particular use where the Park District, another governmental entity, can get the license or can contract with someone, and we can, again, shift the ownership if needed. If for whatever reason the Fat Shallot doesn't want to come back next year and some other restaurant does, there are obviously still criteria that need to be met. The same criteria as if someone was applying for a new license or for even a renewed license. We do fingerprint checks every time that someone is applying for a new license, and we do them usually about every 5 years to make sure that there's nothing that would prohibit a liquor license for that particular individual or company. So getting into the specifics of this proposed use, this is going to be located at Gilson Beach at the existing snack shop, which is currently operating and has operated for food service for a number of years. The Fat Shallot has received 4 temporary liquor licenses for the next 4 weeks, well, 3 weeks now, in which they're allowed to serve the way that they're proposing to serve, except it's only for 72-hour periods. So it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, as opposed to during the entire week. The proposal is limited in not only time, but at time of the year, which makes sense. No one wants to be at the beach in February. So like most beach activity, they are proposing between Memorial Day and Labor Day of every given year. So the license would allow only service of alcoholic beverages during that period. The other conditions, and these conditions are proposals by me. They're the floor. These are what I'm recommending, but they of course can be increased, changed, or altered any way that the committee sees fit to make a recommendation, and ultimately the village board ultimately determines that are proper. But we have, again, we don't have an interior seating area, but there are 2 locations which are shown on one of the maps that's part of the packet, where the individual buying their food and drink can go and presumably sit down, have a meal, throw it away, and then go back to the beach. It's a little under 3,000 square feet, but in the ordinance, I recommend that we just make it a total area of 3,000 square feet. It may expand a little bit in 2 separate locations. But both of these locations, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong here by Emily, but they are contiguous and basically touch the snack shop building itself. So that's important because we don't want someone taking their beer, wine, or whatever alcohol we allow and walk 500 feet away from that snack shop. That kind of defeats the purpose of having the seating area, allowing someone or requiring someone to have it in that seating area and making it close and near to where you're actually purchasing it. The seating area for this one has been shown. It may change over the years. They may want to change the layout, but I do recommend that it's always somewhat contiguous and touching that snack shop. And we can give the Liquor Control Commissioner authority to say, okay, you can shift it over 20 feet here, or you can change it from a triangle to a square or a trapezoid or whatever to expand it. The area should be enclosed though, because the beach area is unique, where it would thwart the ability of us to, or the Fat Shallot to enforce having the liquor only in a designated area, to have it completely open. So it should be enclosed, and I believe it is currently enclosed in some way. And there's signage that says that there can be no liquor beyond that certain point. While these are all things that are being proposed by the applicant, I think they obviously should be made part of the ordinance. And I think they're reasonable and they're actually necessary in this case. That's my professional opinion as the attorney. Of course, again, the committee can always alter those as they see fit. The other component about this one, which is unique. It's not a full liquor license, but it's not just a beer and wine license. What they're asking for are these slushy drinks, and I believe Emily's going to have some sort of photo or some showing you what it is. But the way it's described is a prepackaged single serve alcoholic drink. And I've talked to the state liquor control commissioner's attorney about these, and he said, yeah, these are a popular new thing, but they are considered hard alcohol, basically, or regular full-on liquor, because of the content is either some sort of spirit-based, not necessarily a malt-based like beer, or grape-based like wine. So that would be unique, and we'd have to define that in the act as well, or in our ordinance as well. Again, that may be something that the committee may want to consider to slow walk into maybe for next year, because it is a higher alcohol content. One thing that was not asked for, that may be changed, that is probably going to be changed, the committee talked about last time, was the addition of hard seltzers, and those being a prepackaged can that has an alcohol by volume content usually under 7.5. Most of them are around 4.5 to 5.5, the same as beer and wine. So other than those nuances, oh, I'm sorry, and I am proposing a $500 liquor license fee. We only charge $1,000 for the golf course. This is half the year. It makes sense. It's not a full year service, and to go based on the half we already charge would make sense here. So other than those components, it really is sort of a run-of-the-mill liquor license. It's a restaurant. They're serving food. But there are some enforcement issues that are of concern. There are some location issues that may be of concern. And I think that's for the applicants to sort of describe to us what their process would be as far as not allowing the alcohol to go beyond a certain point, who's going to enforce that, as well as the discussion of the prepackaged single-serve liquor, which is, again, not saying anything other than it's new to us. We don't know what it is. We've never licensed it. So with that, I'll take any questions, or I can turn it over to the applicants.
A quick question, Jeff, Peter Barrow here. You said, and as I understand, that the applicant here is the food service operator, not the village, not the park district.
That's correct.
That's correct. Would it make a difference if the applicant were the park district? And what might occur if the arrangement with this operator were terminated by the park district? Would that right to sell alcoholic beverage also terminate? And would a new operator then need to go through this same process?
So there's two answers to that question, because there's two separate scenarios. But I've addressed the one issue, or I'm proposing to address the issue of one vendor not completing its contract or leaving in the middle of the contract or having a new contract next year. That would allow the Liquor Control Commissioner to simply administratively issue a new license. However, that new applicant must still go through the same process of background checks, and it would still be the same exact license. That's currently the practice right now with the park district, the golf course. I believe a la carte is the licensee right now, but that could change, because the park district can say, we don't want you to do this. We want business B to do this, and business B can step in the shoes of that. Now, the other scenario is that let's just assume that there's no food service, there's no contract, and the park district's going to take this on themselves. They're going to operate as a restaurant. That would be allowed under this the way it's written, because we're giving the license to the park district, but it can also go to whoever the park district designates. So if the park district then says, I'm not designating anybody, it reverts back to the park district. So the ultimate responsibility, though, is going to be the licensee. So in this case, it would be the Fat Shallot that is going to be subject to the terms of the license, not the property owner, just like it would be for Pigeon Tap, who's renting the property. It's not the property owner, it's the person who gets the license. So Fat Shallot is ultimately, responsible for and gets the benefits and the obligations that come with a liquor license.
Good, thank you.
Of course. Okay, no other questions. Chair, if it's okay, I would just turn it over then to Emily and Sarah, who are the applicants.
That'd be great. Thank you both for being here. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks.
Absolutely, thank you. And I just want to thank the Village Board Judiciary Committee for taking this up. It is a new adventure for us here at the Wilmette Park District, specific to the Gilson Beach. So we do appreciate staff's patience as we work through this, and the temporary liquor license has been able to, we've only been open on the weekends for food while District 39 is still in session. So we're not, while we have been open this summer, we have been able to benefit from offering the alcohol. So we've been able to get a little bit of a test sample of how it's been going or how it would be received as well. So in the packet, I did see that the agreement the Park District does have with Smash Radish, the Fat Shallot. We'll just use that name for the sake of this conversation. We have a food service agreement with them. You'll see one of the attachments or addendums is regarding alcohol, which we go through our risk management agency. We do have Bassett certification requirements, food service management requirements. So we feel as though we have set the operation up for as much success as possible with any unforeseens not accounted for, which is going to happen with any business venture. But to Jeff Stein's point, we have identified 2 areas west of the swimming beach, which I think is a really critical point for us to remember, is that it is west of the swimming beach. We have no intention of putting alcohol onto the swimming beach. We've gone through that with our risk management agency. So while we have the no alcohols past this point sign, we also have the double check of when you enter the swim beach, you have to scan your pass. It's very visible what you're bringing onto the beach. The picture that I will share of the prepackaged slushy also has an image of the very bright red fat shallot cups that the alcohol would go into. So it's not something that someone would necessarily have in their cooler bag. They might catch on to it and have it, but we will put those safety measures in place because we want to keep our swimming beach as safe as possible for all the users. That's our foremost focus, right? We're trying to enhance the meal experience, but not necessarily turn it into a South Beach feel on the actual sand. Sorry for the description, but so I guess at this time I will go ahead and share the picture if I know how to use Google Teams correctly, which if my audio issues were any example, it's probably not going to show, but I will try my best. Okay, there we go. Can you see an image right now? Can you see okay. And it's the fat shallot prepackaged clearly with the white top. That's the gin and tonic slushy, an image of the gin and tonic slushy. And then the red in the background, I can't zoom anymore. Sorry, you're looking at my email, is the red fat shallot cup. And I'm going to stop sharing that. I suppose at this point, since this is my first time going through a Judiciary Committee review for an alcohol license in my career, I will turn it over and see if there's any specific questions or anything that we haven't spoken to regarding our proposal or request.
Well, I guess before we do that, maybe if our owner, who I think is with us, would like to speak first, and then we can do all our questioning at once. But if you would like to say anything about the application or your business, now would be a great time to do that.
Sorry, I couldn't really hear you that well, but can you just repeat yourself one more time?
Sure. So I was just going to give you the opportunity now, since the Park District has just introduced your business a little bit, if you'd like to speak a little bit about your business and about what you'd like the Judiciary Committee to know, now would be a great time to do that before we ask our questions.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you all for meeting me. My name's Sarah Weitz. I'm the co-owner of the Fat Shallot with my husband, Sam Barron. We have been around for over almost 9 years now. We've been in business, and we started as a small food truck and then eventually opened at Revival Food Hall and then opened a restaurant with a liquor license over 4 years ago in Lincoln Park. And now we are so excited to be in Wilmette. So far for 2 weekends, we have had just like an incredible response from the Wilmette community. So we are so excited to be here. And yeah, we want to be safe and we want to be able to serve. Really, our focus is food. We are known for our sandwiches and our sides, and we offer salads, and really the alcohol is just a enhancement of the meal. It is not a focus at all. So we just felt like it would be the perfect combination. You're on the beach, you can enjoy your meal and have a beer. And we have found, I know all of my staff up front has been Bassett certified, and we have found in the first 2 weekends that it has been incredible, and people are just really, really enjoying it in the community. And we, please feel free to ask me anything. We think that the red cups are a really great way to be able to tell, like, you can't travel with those red cups anywhere. Because they're bright red and they're open and there's no top. And that way, people can't be putting them in bags and all of that sort of stuff. And we've been, just this weekend, people were asking, can I bring food on the beach? Where can I go? And the signs are very clear. They're very large. So we found them to be very effective. But yeah, thank you so much again. And please let me know what questions you have. And we're just honored to be in Wilmette.
So I think maybe we should let the committee ask some questions. Mr. Stein, just remind me, should the committee ask questions at this point of our two applicants who are here, and then we'll open to see if there's any comments on YouTube or anything. Anyone would like to speak via team?
Yeah, it's appropriate now for the committee to ask any questions it has, and then we can open up for public comment.
So I'd like to have quick questions. I thought maybe it would be addressed in the presentation, but could we talk a little bit, or could one of you talk a little bit about any type of enforcement that's happening? So I have walked down there and looked at the two areas. There weren't any signs down there designating them as alcohol only, maybe because it was a Wednesday when I was down there. But is there any staff outside of the food service area that is ensuring, other than the park district staff who's there doing a multitude of responsibilities, obviously checking people in? Can you just speak a little bit to any other enforcement outside of, once people have their beverage in hand, what the enforcement looks like?
I can speak to that, and then Sarah, if you felt like I missed anything, please jump in. And yes, Kate, we do have varying levels of employees down at the Gilson Beach. We have park patrol and park staff. We've got lifeguards right there. So we do feel as though it's our shared responsibility to make sure that people are enjoying the beverages responsibly for our property as well. So between the Fat Shallot and the Wilmette Park District staff, along with the increased signage and just awareness of where you can go, and specifically not onto the swimming beach, that is the enforcement. So we really view it as more of a shared responsibility, because it's our users enjoying their food and beverages for the seasonal operation. And you wouldn't have seen it on a Wednesday. They're like big A-frame signs that have been up there on the weekends when it's been open. So,
anything else, Sarah, that you wanted to add to that?
No, I just exactly what Emily said. I mean, we will be having people. We have our staff actually is mostly inside, but we will also be going in and out, cleaning tables, pushing them, monitoring the area as a shared responsibility with Emily.
Let me see if Trustee Barrow or Sullivan have questions. I have a few more, but I'd like to open up to them at the moment.
Emily, maybe Jeff, we've never sold alcohol at Gilson before, have we? Is this the first time we've requested this?
The first time was technically for the Beach Bash, which was a foundation event 2 years ago. And we didn't do anything last year. And this would be the first time that we have a food service provider that is interested in that. It's also the first time we're partnering with an actual restaurant to operate the snack shop. We've more gone with concessionaires. But during COVID, we thought we would shop local, try to reinvest in a small business. And that's why we went out looking for maybe a smaller restaurant, family owned, that would really benefit from the snack shop operation down at Gilson Beach.
I would also, an organization like Fat Shallot probably would do a little bit better now that you, with the redevelopment of the property on the beach versus what it was. So I assume that's sort of the logical, was it sort of in the logic of we try to like to attract a restaurant like a Fat Shallot?
When we did the construction, I think we were just enhancing that whole property altogether. I joined the agency at the tail end of actual construction. But I do know this year specific, I can speak to, we really were looking to how to give back and how to reinvest in either the community and or a small family business to operate the snack shop. Because I think everyone experienced a really challenging time throughout COVID. And I personally think that the community would enjoy a restaurant versus a concessionaire. But that's, one small sample size. I know as a parent with toddlers, I have to go to these places with my kids and I would enjoy a nicer meal and maybe a beverage or two while I'm experiencing that. So
Dealing with kids. So I guess maybe it's a question for both governments. With the, obviously the summer heat wave that we're experiencing, plus sort of the pent up demand to get out of the house as things sort of reopen, are we overly concerned about how we manage crowds and control and manage this as sort of life returns to normal, especially after this Friday? Any concerns there? I mean, is this biting off more than we can chew with what we expect? Because I understand that Gilson's the beach is being heavily used these days.
mm-hmm.
Enforcement wise, what's the lean on? Do we add other security? Is it all on Wilmette Police? Sort of, how do we monitor this?
I can take that. Security at the beach is really a cooperative effort between the Park District and the village. So every weekend we try to detail a police officer at the Park District's request, and that officer is assigned to the beach and the park. Plus, we have a beat officer who's focused on that area as well. And then the Park District hires park guards actually through the village. We hire them, Park District supervisors, it manages them, but this is so that they can enforce their ordinances out on the park without having to call the police all the time. Trustee Sullivan, you're certainly correct. Last year and this year, I thought there were certainly higher crowd volumes as folks were looking to be outside more. It's certainly something we're attuned to, and the police department's working closely with the Park District. And we know the new lakefront manager there very well, and he has a very good relationship with our police department. So that's also helped to improve that communication. Jeff, you correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe the police department's expressed any concerns with this application relative to alcohol at the beach. It's no secret alcohol at the beach is there already, and it's something that's often confiscated either by the Park District staff or our police department issuing citations for underage drinking or for drinking on the beach. So it's certainly, in terms of alcohol at the beach, not a new concept, but this would be a regulated component of it. But to your point, Trustee Sullivan, we are very focused on the security of the beach this year, and we're going to continue an ongoing dialogue with the Park District to make sure everyone feels safe and comfortable there. To add on to that, most of the cases that I get through administrative adjudication are not adults with alcohol. It's 17-year-olds and 19-year-olds that have alcohol and go to the park, either Gilson Park or the beach at night. And obviously this application or this liquor license would not increase that. If it did, we would have big problems, and so would the Fat Shallot. But so no one, underage. I'm not concerned about underage individuals purchasing alcohol from the Fat Shallot in this case.
Eric, for me. Oh, actually, one more question for Mr. Sen, because I was confused. Are we allowing for the liquor? I know it's beer, wine, and this daiquiri or whatever it's called, and are we also amending to allow for seltzers, or is that not requested?
So the seltzers discussion was the last time we had the committee meeting, and it'll be on the agenda for the next village board meeting. And what because this is essentially a beer and wine license, it's a beer and wine plus license. I would add the seltzers in anyway at some point at the next, basically the next village board meeting. So I don't even know it's a topic of discussion, but we're going to offer it to anybody that has the beer and wine license to also be able to serve the seltzers. They would be included as well.
Mr. Barrow, did you have questions?
You're on mute, Trustee Barrow. Might be the last time we get to say that to you.
Gosh, I hope so. Anyway, two quick questions. First, what is the alcohol content of the slushies? Because we're talking about beer and wine and these sort of margarita, I gather, type slushies. What are the alcohol content of those beverages?
So I am not the chef. My husband is, but he has the exact recipe, so I can get that information to Emily today and give it to you. So I don't know the exact amount, but I'm guessing it's about, I think it's 2 ounces, if I had to guess, like 2 ounces of gin per cocktail. So it's like your standard. I don't know the exact alcohol content. I will find out for you.
At least in my experience, those things are generally fairly not very alcoholic. So it wouldn't surprise me if, in fact, it was even lower than that. But my second question is really for the Park District. And I appreciate that the golf course is sort of different than the beach, because maybe a different demographic of users. But what's been your experience in selling different types of alcohol outdoors at the golf course?
As the superintendent of recreation, one of the only areas that doesn't fall under me is the actual golf course. So I
Okay.
believe that the experience, I mean, I think between our two entities and especially the amount of support the village does provide as far as safety services with both police and fire. I believe that we've been able to successfully offer the alcohol beverages on the course and in the restaurant and the snack bar with that little outside window to the turnaround there at the 9th. So I believe overall we've had a pretty successful experience. I think we also rely heavily on the licensee. You know, that partnership is really important to an overall successful operation. So if I'm going to go with that mindset, I believe that we have a good working relationship with the Fat Shallot thus far. They have a restaurant that aligns with our customer base. So I do believe if we're going to transfer that experience, I think that we've set it up for as much success as one can. June 9th of a new adventure.
One last question. The Fat Shallot, you've been operating with a temporary license for liquor license for some period of time. Is that correct?
Yes, for 2 weekends so far.
And your experience in those 2 weekends, can you give us a sense of what kind of demand you've had for alcoholic beverages and how that has worked out just 2 weekends worth?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I think it's been wonderful. I mean, no one has actually ordered more than 1 or 2 drinks that has come. We've served over 1,000 people in the 2. We served, I don't know if it's exactly that. We've served an insane amount of people. It is less than 10% of sales of alcohol. So it is fairly low in the amount that we are selling. It really is majority food. It is really just a small, most people are, anyone that's getting drinks is getting 1 drink and it's going with their meal. And it's only been positive.
And what again are your days of operation?
moving forward, starting this Friday, we will be open Tuesday through Sunday, 11 to 7 p.m. So we really are primarily lunch and then an early dinner.
Trustee Barrow, the proposed times for liquor service is noon. They're closed on Mondays, but noon to 7 on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Sundays, and then noon to 8 on Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Very
So
good.
while they'll still be open for food service, I think an hour before that, liquor can only start at noon.
Very well. Thank you. I'm all set.
I have some additional questions. Let me just understand what you said. So can alcohol then be served after food service is done? I just heard Sarah said they're done at 7, and then you said they can start at 8. So is it 7 or 8?
So
I think
yeah.
sorry, go ahead, Emma.
It's we're open till 7. We're leaving the door open to see if we want to extend that early dinner hour, but we wouldn't do alcohol without food. So if we stayed open till 8 on the weekends, according to our visit histories, that's it's busier on those later because people don't have work the next morning or camps or school or whatnot. So we put the 8 o'clock just as to be able to explore the opportunity to stay open for dinner service. But again, the alcohol would never go without the food.
So as I understand, then at the moment you're closing service even on the weekends at 7, but at some point it might extend till 8. Is that what I'm understanding now?
We want to leave the option to be able to extend till 8, but we are doing it till 7 because we don't know how the community is going to receive an actual restaurant in the snack shop. So we're trying to stay open-minded to what the community needs or wants from us.
Okay. And I will say the food options look great. I was looking at your menu and it looks like fabulous food. So I guess I'm curious then if you're saying that the alcohol component so far, and I know you only have a couple weekends, is only about 10%. Is the service of alcohol absolutely critical to your being able to make your business work down at Gilson?
Absolutely critical? No. But at the Fat Chalet, we really feel like, I am a mother of 3, and it is really nice to go out with my family and be able to have 1 glass of wine with my dinner. And for us, it's really about the whole experience. At our brand, it's about, having fun, obviously being safe, but there is something to be said. People in Wilmette are like, I feel like I'm on vacation, and it's just really, really nice. It's not the Rathskeller in Madison, the Union. It's really just a way for people to be able to enjoy their meal and have a drink with it. It's not detrimental. It's just a huge bonus.
I definitely have heard that from people, so I hear you and I definitely hear that. Is the main idea that this restaurant is for beachgoers, park users, people coming, like who do we see this restaurant looking to serve?
I think 95% beachgoers, to be honest. And that's what we experienced. We had a line the entire time from 11 to 7 p.m. It was primarily beachgoers. Of course, there were some walkers, but and then 1 or 2 of our followers. Of course, we catered in Wilmette this weekend with our food truck. We catered for Baker School today. We are catering for New Trier tomorrow. We definitely have a Wilmette following. So I do think that 95% will be the community and beachgoers.
Okay. Because we talk a little bit about the slushy, because I was looking at it today when I was down there, and I see that the slushy machines are going in the back. When you go and you look in, there are the slushy machines going. So how is it being prepackaged? Is it not going directly from the slushy machines into a cup? It's going. How is that working in practice?
Yeah, so we pre-make the slushy and it's in that machine refrigerated, and then we turn it on when we the store, so it slushifies. I don't know if that's even a word, but it goes from the slushy machine into the cup and sealed.
So what was the picture of the sealed prepackaged that we saw? That's not what's happening. If it's going from the slushy machine into the cup, or it's,
Yeah,
I mean, that's not a cup, but a container.
the slushy can be served in the red cup or that sealed container that you saw.
So it's not really prepackaged then.
Well, it can be prepackaged into that cup,
So
into that bottle.
So also, if that is a concern, the machine you saw is also their lemonade as well. So I don't know exactly which one you're referring to. If it's the wish of the committee, we can only do the prepackaged and not put it into the red cup. If that's a parameter that you'd like to set around that, we could certainly do that.
I'm trying to understand because, for example, when I was with my kids today, a ginger lemonade, which was going in a slushy, and then they had another slushy, but the ginger lemonade is also alcoholic, right?
That ginger lemonade is not alcoholic.
Okay, so there's a ginger lemonade that is, and there's one that isn't,
Yes.
and they're different machines.
Yes.
Okay.
The machine you saw is just the lemonade, and then the other machine is for the gin and tonic slush.
Okay.
And both are pre-made and put directly into the cup.
Okay.
So the application and the email that I received from the Park District and the ordinance all indicates that it should be prepackaged. So this is what I was, this is the operation this is what I was operating under when I drafted these conditions. I do think this absolutely needs to be addressed by the committee one way or another, but the application itself and the email says prepackaged alcoholic slushy. Prepackaged is a term of art in the Liquor Control Act and in our old ordinances. So it obviously means a sealed container that's been packaged, not free flowing like an open bottle.
On that concern, I'm sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean
I was going to say, you can see the bottle has a seal on it. So everything is can be prepackaged and sealed. If that's what you guys want. We're happy to do whatever you guys want.
So I had one person who is in favor of this completely, but mentioned to me that when she ordered an alcoholic drink, she was also offered a shooter. What is a shooter? How does that fit into this?
We don't do any shooters. Somebody asked for a shooter and we told them we don't do that.
Okay.
Someone asked for like a topper and I said no.
Okay. So that was they thought it was a great idea. I was sort of like, I don't quite understand how that fits into this, but that was, I didn't add, that was simply what I was asking for various people who've been down there with their experience. So we're not offering shooters or additional free flowing alcohol in any way down there?
No.
Okay.
No.
Do either of the other trustee, I feel like I'm monopolizing. Do either of the other trustees have questions they'd like to insert here?
No, I think I would simply comment that I think in terms of creating a system where there's less opportunity for abuse, that dispensing the slushies into an open red cup, to my mind anyway, is better than dispensing it into a closed container, which can in turn be placed in the bottom of a bag under some towels and taken to the beach. So I'm not sure I'm following why requiring dispensing in a sealed container is better than an open container which can't easily be transported away from the area where consumption must occur.
Well, I do think, just like a can of beer or a single serve bottle, a single serve glass of wine, that can't be given to the individual, the end user sealed. It has to be opened. I believe the prepackaged container does regulate, obviously, the amount, the alcohol by volume content. It doesn't really necessarily allow for adding a shooter, but I guess you could, once you pour it in there. But it does regulate, it does have some consistency in the regulation as opposed to something free flowing. Now, the Fat Shallot couldn't give you a can of beer that's not opened. Just like they couldn't give you this slushy that isn't opened. It has to be opened prior to getting it. But to that end, I do see your point that it is harder to hide a slushy in a red cup in your beach bag without spilling all over the place than it would be in a container.
Yeah,
Either way, I'm fine with either one. I was going off of what the application stated, which was a prepackaged.
yeah,
I didn't. Yeah,
I actually think that that we should be thinking about requiring that all of the alcoholic beverages be dispensed in open containers that are red or at least obvious, that cannot be easily transported or secreted, so that it's obvious when one tried to leave the consumption area that they were leaving with an alcoholic beverage.
I think that's very well taken. I think I absolutely agree with what you're saying. I do. The only concern, and the reason why the prepackaging is because it measures the amount, right? But I guess if you have the cups and you can fill it to the brim and that's it. But that was the concern. And again, I didn't know anything about the slushing machine until maybe 25 minutes ago. So I thought these were pouches, like prepackaged pouches, because that's what was sort of described. So we can do that. We can absolutely say that all alcoholic beverages must be poured into an open container, and obviously we do say it's only can be consumed in the enclosed areas. But again, these are things for the committee to direct me and agree on and direct me.
Well, let's ask that question of the applicant. Is that something that can work? How would that affect your service?
I mean, I think the red cups make the most sense for the alcoholic drinks because they can't transport them. Sorry. For the beer, not so much.
I think we just lost her.
She should be back.
Sorry about that. I'm back. My call just failed. But I'm open to anything. I think that the red cups do make sense for the can tell a beer from a beer. But I'm open to what you guys want.
And do you serve wine?
Jaya, we're having trouble hearing you. I think your microphone's not picking you.
I'm sorry. Do you serve wine in the red cup?
No, for the wine, we just have a cup for them and they can pour it from their bottle.
So wait.
The bottle's a single serve.
It's a single serve and it's the clear plastic little wine.
Sorry, got it. Okay.
You have like in barbecues, yeah.
Okay. Are you always having trouble hearing me, Mr. Stein, or is it just if I don't sort of lean forward?
It's if you don't lean forward.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Can I ask that question then, just on the wine? Now that it seems like we're talking about lids. When you serve, if I go up and order a thing of wine from you, I assume a plastic cup and a bottle of wine. Are you taking the top before you give it to me?
No, but I can.
Because I think that's where we're sort of having a little bit of, if I get that thing of wine, I could reseal it, put it in between my towels and walk down to the swimming beach, or I get the plastic thing. It's semantics. I mean, if somebody's really going to sneak it, but I think ultimately that's, if I understand where we're going, is how do you make it as cumbersome as possible to have somebody put it in, hide it, to sneak it and walk away?
Well, so I will say by law, you have to. Okay, you have to, this is not a you don't have a packaged goods license. That's technically a packaged good because it's an unopened original container. So you'd have to open the can of beer or open the bottle of wine, and then you can give the can, whatever the committee decides on how then to transport that. But it does have to be an opened container prior to you transferring it to the customer.
But Mr. Stein, I think that's where I'm confused on open. I mean, again, I'm using this thing, which is just water. Is this open, but it comes back on and I screwed it on?
No, you got to take the
Technically, they
cap.
Open it, but now that's open if I have this.
You have to take the cap with you. And the same thing with the can. Obviously, you can't reseal a can.
Right.
So think about it at I don't know if you, I know it's been a while, but you go to a White Sox game or a Cubs game, they don't give you the can with the lid on it. They take the lid. That's exactly what you should be doing. That's what all our restaurants do.
Yeah. No, and I think, as far as I agree with Peter where we're going, whether they just pour it right up into a red cup from the slushy machine into the red cup, other than controlling the alcohol content, I guess. But that seems like that's the most cumbersome. I'm not going to take that Dixie or a Solo cup somewhere else. But
and if that's the direction of the committee, I can absolutely write the ordinance to reflect that. That's not an issue.
So is your biggest concern people swimming after drinking, or is there any concern around people people taking drinks into the park, or any issues with the police? I know that we had to shut down Gilson Beach last weekend with, I understand, some fighting or something that came out that the police were dealing with an issue. So is there concern about consumption beyond people getting into the water, having drunk too much, just maybe from the park district and the village? What kind of concerns do we have around, just again, our issues around controlling in general the atmosphere and what's meant to be a family safe, family friendly place to go on the weekends?
So from the village's standpoint, I don't believe that this license would necessarily impact that. The licensee has an obligation under the code and under law, including their insurance carrier requires them to not overserve people. Is it one more point of access to get alcohol? Absolutely. But as Mike alluded to, people do sneak their cans of beer or whatever they're going to sneak onto the property itself. I don't see this application and this use really expanding that. If this was like a golf cart driving around with doing deliveries to the beach itself, I think we would probably have said no to that right off the bat. So, and again, this is also a trial run. We've been having a trial run with the last 2 weeks. The weather's been really hot and nice, and I have not heard any new complaints from our police department. We get a list of all citations and incidents every day, and I have not seen anything really alcohol related at the beach. I have seen the fight you alluded to, and my citations are for people that would never be able to buy. Or the citations I receive are for people that would never be able to buy from this entity anyway. So I think that I don't necessarily think this will increase it, but this is a trial run, and that's why we do this.
Can we talk about that for a minute too, then on carding issues? So I heard you say, sir, that everybody who's working behind in your area is Bassett trained, everybody?
Yes, everybody is trained. We have 2 new hires, so we have to get them trained. Anyone working at the front, there will always be there at all times.
So it might not be that everybody is Bassett trained, but somebody who's Bassett trained will be there.
Yeah, nobody will be serving alcohol to any person that isn't Bassett certified.
And I read from the material that it's up to the discretion of the person doing the carding whether they think the person looks old enough to be served without asking for an ID. Did I understand that correctly?
We will be carding every single person. It's just not worth any risk.
What you're referencing is the general list from our risk management agency, but we can take those as recommendations and put our best practices into place. And that's what Sarah spoke to, that they are carding regardless, because it's just an easier way to be thorough.
So I do know that people are wandering up in bathing suits and don't have an ID on them. And I heard from a couple people who, again, loved it, but did say they were in a bathing suit and they were not asked. They said, look, I'm 50, and they clearly said, I look 50. But they were not ID'd. So I do think if we're going to card everyone, even if they're in a bathing suit, they're going to have to go back and get their ID. We can't sort of we're going to have to, I think, be really carding everyone, regardless of how they show up asking. Does anyone Trustee Sullivan or Trustee Baird disagree with that?
I'm not sure that's frankly a policy that's really in our purview to be setting. I mean, I'll turn to Mr. Stein on that department. Do we impose a specific policy like that for Sophia, for Pit and Tap, for fill in the blank, any restaurant that we have that serves alcohol? Do we mandate that they card every person regardless of appearance? Let's understand what we do.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we should do something different in this instance.
So we do not require or mandate everybody be carded. What we require is that anybody serving alcohol be state licensed and BASSET trained.
Okay.
And the BASSET training does cover who should be carded and who shouldn't. If there's ever a doubt, always card. And I will tell you that from what Sarah's point is that most places will card almost no matter what, because it's on their liability. Then their dram shop doesn't kick in if they serve someone underage, or it could be an undercover sting that we do twice a year, where we're pretty good here, but we had one incident a couple months ago where someone served someone underage, and they've gotten a fine and a stern talking to. So it doesn't happen often here. This is only the second one in the last couple of years, at least 10 years. But it's almost never worth it for the licensee to say, you look old enough, go ahead.
Yeah.
But so we do require BASSET training, and BASSET training is essentially the state standard.
Well, at least in my thought, that ought to be sufficient. If they're cavalier about it, they do it at their peril.
Yeah. Mr. Sullivan, did you have something else?
Were you asking me?
Yes.
Oh, no, Peter said exactly. I mean, I understand your point, and Peter's point. I think that Mr. Stein answered. That's sort of the risk we grant this, and they decide to serve underage kids in bathing suits. I don't think it'll last very long. So, I mean, my hunch is there goes a major revenue source, let alone all the pain you're going to go through.
Yeah. Yep.
So do we have any other questions then? I know we need to take public comment. We may have additional discussion, but do we have other direct questions for our applicant or for the Park District?
I'm done.
Trustee Sullivan?
No, very good question. Good discussion.
So appreciate, well, before we let you go, let's see if there's anyone else on Teams who has a question, or do we have any public comment?
There's no public comment on YouTube.
Okay, I don't know that I see anyone on Teams who would make a comment. Raise your hand now if you are planning to. I so appreciate you being here to answer our questions, and please don't take our questioning as anything other than trying to help you make sure this is successful, both for the community and for you all. And we really appreciate you being here. And I think we're just going to discuss this a bit before we take a vote. You're welcome to stay on and hear the discussion. So with that, trustees, do we want to discuss this further? I know we may need to amend the ordinance a bit based on our discussion, or amend our suggestions, I guess, of the ordinance to the board.
Yeah.
So, thoughts on that?
I thought it was a good discussion, and overall I'm supportive. I think and appreciate everybody's perspective. I think we all are. I felt like sort of my concerns of how do we manage it was shared amongst the group, and no, this is going to be a busy summer, which would be a good thing for your business, but hopefully this doesn't spin out of control. And I think actually the advantage here is both the owner of the restaurant and the park board or park district, if this is not oversought with the right intentions, that's that'll be detrimental. So I think in this case, we actually have two very interested parties to make sure that they monitor and do this the right way. So I think it's worth, I would support it.
I think this is yet another great development in Wilmette. If you've eaten the Park District food over the years, as I have with our kids, you know that this is a major step up. Like Kate, I read the menu online the other day and I said, whoa, this sounds terrific. And we certainly know people that know of this organization and have only the highest things to say about it. So I think it's a terrific development. I think the minor alcohol offerings here are a nice complement to perhaps an afternoon at the beach, and I'm certainly in favor of this.
So I guess I am a little torn. It's not that I'm absolutely 100% supportive of the food. I can't say that enough. And I love a beer, a glass of wine as much as I just am a little torn around what we're asking of our Park District staff, because I know there's just a lot of kids down there working, and it's not that I'm not in favor of, I just got to express, and we'll see how it goes, I guess, assuming this is passed by the village board, but I just am a little concerned about how much we're asking of our Park District staff in terms of enforcing this. If this gets very busy and crazy, which just in terms of number of people down there, and we're trying to make sure people are only consuming on those 2 patio areas, which are good size, but not going to accommodate huge amounts of people. And we're asking, 16-year-olds to manage where people are. I've got to confess, I have just a little, I don't think it's like any other restaurant, because it isn't really enclosed. I mean, the patios are 3-sided, but you just walk on and off them pretty easily to the park or wherever else. So this is a mother of teenage kids trying to work these kinds of jobs. I'm interested to see. I have a little unsettled feeling about how we're enforcing keeping these beverages on these patios, and who's in charge of doing that. And I'm not really worried so much about the consumption necessarily as I am about where it's being consumed and our ability to keep it in these areas. So I just have to express that. And I guess maybe it's worth it to see, and but I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, Kate, I don't think that's crazy at all. I mean, I certainly appreciate your concern, but I think in this case the benefits of trying outweigh those sort of vague uncertainties about how this will play out. It's for both the applicant and the Park District's benefit to make this work. Mm-hmm. And I'm confident that they will certainly try, and I think that they actually will do so. If the Park District had substantial concern about this, I don't think we'd even be here. So at least I certainly favor giving this thumbs up at this point. And if it turns out that this somehow becomes South Beach, then we will talk again and we'll shut it down.
So then, though, that it would be only open, so beer, wine, slushies, whatever it is, must be served in an open container, essentially.
Yes, that would be the nature, because we're not doing a package license. So it doesn't even need to be expressly stated in the ordinance, because that's what a on-site premises license says. It seems like the applicant completely understood that. I guess the guidance I need is I'm assuming we're going to go with the red cup then too, even for the slushies. And the one thing that I will need from Ms. White's is the alcohol by volume content of a single serve of the slushie. Because what we don't want, and I do have some questions, which we can do offline, but it's just how it's made. Is it in is the alcohol put into the slushie machine, or is the alcohol added after the fact? And that could help me write the ordinance and the regulations. Actually, if I know you said you might not know, that's why I want to put you on the spot, but.
Yeah, no, everything's made together, mixed together, and then poured in. So into the alcohol and the the sugar and everything. is
Okay.
poured in the machine at once.
Okay, so then all I really need, that's what I assumed, but that's all I really need then is from you, what the alcohol by volume content is whenever you get a chance to talk to the chef. Other than that, I think I have the direction I need, and unless there's something else that I'm missing here.
Okay, I think, Trustee Sullivan, anything else?
No, I think, and I mean, Peter said it well. I mean, Kate, I agree and respect the concerns, and that's sort of what I was alluding to. And I actually, unfortunately, think this weekend is going to be a test for all, just given what the weather forecast is, and us returning, lifting all the restrictions. So I think it's going to be a busy weekend for both governments, and it's going to test us. So, and Mr. Brayman and I talked about that yesterday.
Okay.
So.
All right, then I think since we have no comment from either YouTube or on Teams, I think we're probably ready to do a roll call vote on the motion, which again is just a reminder, this is just a recommendation to the full board from our committee as to our thought on this classification of this liquor license.
Trustee Barrow. You're on mute. I think you said aye, but.
Maybe this will be the last one.
Maybe.
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan.
Aye.
Chair Jaya.
Aye.
Motion passes, and I will draft an ordinance, which will be placed on the next village board agenda, and I am recommending that we do waive the rules on that because of the timing. That the introduction and waiver, and it's already been vetted by the committee, so I think it'll be received okay from the rest of the village board. But again, that's going to be a recommendation. Of course, the village board can always table it or do whatever they need to do to discuss, whatever you need to do to get more information. So.
And again, as Trustee Sullivan said, in 2 weeks, we may have more information on how this is going and additional considerations. And so we'll have 2 more weekends of data under our belt, so to speak.
Absolutely. And it can always change between then.
Yep. Okay. Well, we wish absolutely the best of luck to the Fat Shallot over the next couple of weekends. We are absolutely hoping for great success down there and hope that our residents and parkgoers enjoy it. So that we're going to conclude discussion on that agenda item, and we'll move to agenda item 4, which is discussion of outdoor dining structures. Ordinance 2021-0-20 was passed last night on consent on the village board agenda. However, one provision of the ordinance was removed and referred to this committee for further consideration, which is outdoor dining structures. We have received, and there is in the packet, a memo from Mr. Brayman on this issue. And I'm sure we've all had a chance to review that. And so, Mr. Steiner, Mr. Raymond, do you have additional information you'd like to put out for discussion? This is not, I don't believe, a motion. This is simply a discussion. Is that correct?
This is a discussion, and then obviously we'll get direction. Both Mr. Brayman and I will get direction on how to proceed going forward. This is informal, though, very informal.
All right, thank you. I'll take the lead on this, and I'm not going to repeat what's in my memo. I know everybody's read it, and I think we've discussed this with each of the committee members one-on-one at some point over the past week. So just background in terms of where we're at, and I actually was able to get some pictures of what the Napolita greenhouses looked like this past season that I'll pull up on my screen that I think will help through our discussion. We're trying to be proactive here. We don't currently have any requests, or no restaurants have expressed interest in doing this type of outdoor dining this coming winter. But we know from experience we'll get that request in September, and then we're going to have to scramble and come up with a process and an approval for that at the very last minute, which really is not the best way to operate. This year we were able to do it through the disaster declaration. We won't have that disaster declaration in place come winter. It's likely to be gone probably in the next few weeks or months. So what we wanted to do is just make sure or see if there was a comfort level amongst the village board of allowing these structures. And I think the key word here is temporary. These are all temporary. Do we allow them for this coming winter if a restaurant is interested? If we do, what type of process do we want to have? Our recommendation from a staff perspective is to continue the process we used this past winter. We thought it worked well, which was a staff review. The applicant had to submit a site plan, nothing too formal, no renderings, but a site plan drawn out, and then that would be approved. Minimum have to meet ADA requirements. We'd be looking at a 5-foot walkway across the sidewalk. So that is, no matter what we do, imperative that you provide that walk width across the sidewalk for a wheelchair or a stroller or whatnot. So we thought the process worked well. I think we're comfortable continuing on this process. There's a lot of flexibility that the village has through a staff approval in terms of what we would want to see or require them to remove it. If we're not comfortable with the staff-driven process, we can formalize it. Our recommendation would be to formalize it through the Appearance Review Commission. The Appearance Review Commission would not look at the factors such as sidewalk width, because that would, as I said, be a requirement. They really look at the aesthetics of this and what we want it to look like. That, in our opinion, is a little process heavy because these are temporary in nature, and the fact that these restaurants necessarily don't have the time or necessarily want to spend the extra money to prepare full renderings to go through that process. It is somewhat cumbersome, but it could lead to a different product as well, potentially a better product. So, there's a couple options that we could go with here. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if I can do this right here. Oh, I just shared the wrong one, I believe. I'm going to try that again. So if you could see the structures here, Napolita had 4 of them up. Their site plan had shown 6 feet between the edge of the structure and the wall here. Obviously, this was a temporary situation where they had some tables here that they were cleaning up. They were a little less than 6 feet. They were about 5.5 feet in their path. You could see they barricaded or blocked the structures from the parking. This is parking space right here, which I think we would want to maintain some type of buffer in case there is an accident. But these were the structures that were primarily in use this past winter. I know Pescadero had tried an igloo. It didn't work once it snowed, but there are other igloos out there that would probably work on a more permanent nature throughout the winter. So the purpose of us showing this is just to show there clearly was enough space to provide that 5-foot sidewalk width, and we would require it. And actually, in our review of this yesterday out on the street, we met with engineering and community development. This actually is better contained from an accessibility standpoint because you don't have chairs that push out into the sidewalk when somebody sits. You're fully contained within these structures, making sure that you're always maintaining that access. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here unless anybody has questions on those pictures. So what we're looking for today is just some general direction from the committee on whether we want to kind of move forward with the approach that was recommended, which is to allow staff to review these on a case-by-case basis, or if we want to dig into some more detailed process and then what that would be.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond. Do you have comments from the other trustees to start?
I do not at this time.
Nor do I.
So, okay, once again, I do. So help me understand. So I know, for example, that anytime someone asks for a tent structure, we see that on the village board agenda. So if the staff is reviewing this, would it be the staff would review it and we would see it on the village board agenda for approval?
No, well, as drafted, no. What it would be is essentially, so tents are not part of this. That's an important thing to say. And these are only these temporary structures on the public right of way. Most people want tents on their private property or the parking lot or things like that. This is essentially giving the community development director the same authority he has to put tables and chairs there. So right now, the community development director can look at a site plan and say, okay, this doesn't meet the 4 feet, or you need to move it over here because this is impacting another business, and that's the table and chairs. All this does is essentially then drop a enclosure on that. A tent is different in the fact that it's not necessarily a structure, but there's other issues that come with tents as far as durability and safety issues and imposing on the public right of way. Most tents, though, we don't want to be. They don't ask for them to be on the right of way. We've had requests for the parking lot at Plaza del Lago. We've had requests for the parking lot behind Sophia's, and that had to go through the temporary use process.
So we see these temporary structures as being fundamentally different than a tent. But for example, the ones that went up at Pescadero were, in the end, not sufficient, couldn't really withstand the weather. They were sort of temporary structures that came down in the weather, and there may have been a safety issue with those just in terms of that. So I'm just a little unsure as to why these would receive less review than a tent.
Well, it essentially, well, I guess you're referring to the igloos, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
right? Because the other structures were okay until
Absolutely.
they moved. You know, we just have, we have more experience with tents, and we know that what the issues are there. We don't have necessarily the same amount of experience with these types of structures or the igloos, or you know, or the greenhouses. However, it is incumbent upon the restaurant that wants to do this to make sure that they are safe. And I think we are learning a lesson, or we definitely learned a lesson from the last go around with the igloos. Tents are, again, they're just somewhat a little bit more imposing. They're larger than, they take up more space, at least width-wise, than these little greenhouses do. And that's why, and it's just traditionally already been addressed in our village code. So the zoning code actually specifically says tents, and that's why we didn't put that in here. But again, you know, we always have the ability to change the process as the way the committee recommends.
Yeah, and Jeff, and in terms of the tents, I think a difference too is that those tents in the past have historically gone up in spaces where there wasn't outdoor dining previously approved. So Sophia Steak, they're looking to put it in their back parking lot adjacent to that condo building. There was never dining there. Or Convito had a tent in the parking lot where there was never dining. So that was different, where this would be restricted to areas where we've already approved outdoor dining. So the impact on a neighbor is really no different than it is during the summer when it's louder, right? When you're outside dining, it's much louder than when you're in a greenhouse. Yeah, I don't think there's no objection from a staff perspective if we wanted to make this a temporary use permit that goes to the board for review. That's certainly fine. I think we should have the expectation that we're not going to see a very formal presentation, you know, with renderings and exactly how it's all going to look. But you know, that's certainly an option we could move forward with.
But just to be clear too, in the past, when we use, and we only had this last season, anyone's even wanted to, and we don't know if any businesses want to continue this, but they were limited because they could only fit a certain number of people in because of the COVID restrictions. In theory, someone could want to put an outdoor structure that would seat 20 people.
So, and that's the reason, one of the reasons why the ordinance was written the way it was, is to give discretion to the community development director, because this isn't one size fits all. Each restaurant has its own needs, and each location has its own abilities, right? So Pit and Tap is able to extend around the corner and do some extra stuff there, whereas other places are not. Valley Lodge has got, you know, now expanded seating, but whatever restaurant might not have that same thing. So this isn't one size fits all, where we can just say you can have a 4x6 here, or you can have a 20x20 here. And that's why we have the ability of the community development director to use, you know, and he has the staff, he has the technical staff with the building inspectors, and then we also confer with the fire department to make sure that there's no fire issues. So I think the igloos were probably, again, not necessarily part of this process, and we are learning from that, and that's why we're kind of going through this process now, but still giving discretion to staff.
So, Peter, did you want, Mr. Pescivera, did you want to say something about another question? No? Okay. Okay, sorry, I saw you unmuted, so I wasn't sure if you wanted to interrupt me.
Yeah.
Or insert.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
I know that we've recently changed our ordinance to allow restaurants to locate tables at nearby businesses other than the restaurant itself. Do we contemplate that these structures could also be located in air beyond the confines of each of the restaurants?
Yes,
Jeff, I could take that.
Okay.
You know, well, I mean, the way the ordinance is drafted, it would allow us to approve that, but I really think that's imposing on those other businesses. Right now, you're blocking their view,
Right.
you're blocking the accessibility. I don't think we would want to approve that. I think we would want to restrict this, and that may be something that we would want to write into the ordinance, that these structures are restricted to the frontage of the business, or, you know, where they're not impactful on a neighboring business.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. That's the genesis of my question, really.
So, and just to piggyback onto that, it is, in fact, the ordinance is written that way. This isn't a right for a restaurant to go ahead and put this. What it is it's the right for them to apply and to let the community development director apply those standards that he feels is appropriate. One of the standards that's in there is that it does not have an adverse impact on a neighboring business. So that could also even be the chairs and tables too. They themselves may have an impact that need to be removed. And we're currently seeing that operated now under Sophia's, where they're not putting the tables out until the other businesses are closed at night for the most part, or closing down.
Mhm. Good, thanks.
Do we know what other local, I know when it was pulled off of the consent agenda, one of the questions was, do we know what other communities are doing on this front, how they're approving these structures? Do we have any sense of that?
So the only one I'm aware of that's at this point where they're thinking about it in June was Glencoe. And Glencoe had a pretty robust program this past season with Guildhall. They spent substantial sums of money building out their greenhouses, and Hometown Coffee also had a pretty robust greenhouse program. So they're taking a more proactive approach where they're actually allowing them year round. In that instance, they did village board reviews of each application because that's no longer temporary in nature. And so I think that's a big difference here is we really see this as temporary. And if we try something this winter and we don't like it, we're not going to approve it the next year, right? And that's something the restaurants, are going to know going into this. I'm not aware of the other communities at this point digging into it.
Okay. So we're already considering, though, which is a little bit different than when it was initially proposed, limiting this to something like October, end of October to March or something like that, as I understand.
That would be new, and it actually makes sense, and I think staff is supportive of that. I think it was October to probably the beginning of April, when the weather starts to change, maybe. You never know.
Cold springs. I guess my thought, and I just like to throw this out there and see what the other two trustees think of this. I feel like the only opportunity for our public, for the community to really be aware and or comment on these or provide any input is if it comes before the village board, which is whether or not they're paying attention or not. That seems like that's really where they have an opportunity to provide input on this. And so if it's, I actually think that the staff has the expertise, but that then it may be a real surprise to the community when greenhouses go up various places next year. It was just being approved by staff, and there's no, like with tents at least, if someone had a concern about a tent, it comes before the village board and they can express a concern. So while I'm not looking to, I absolutely understand our desire to support our businesses, and I'm not looking to require they do lots of color renderings. It seems like if it at least has to go past the village board, then our community has an opportunity to be aware of it and to make any comment they might wish to make on this. Since I do think there were some people, I think there were lots of people who loved it. I think there were some people who found it made some of our people who have a little more difficulty moving around the community, it was a little bit more challenging for them. And I just would like to be sensitive to that. And I guess, do either of the other trustees have a thought on that?
I think when I hear, I know commenting on putting it up, but I guess I look at it differently. If one of these restaurants decides to put up something that isn't in character or is a train wreck, given them the experience, they're pretty vocal about finding us at board meetings and complaining. So I think that's where we're here. Now, what are our rights? That's where, and that's where hopefully our restaurants would pivot. If we and I think we gave restaurants a lot of flexibility this year since this was a new concept that we all adapted to. Knowing the restaurants we have, I think they're going to be pretty cognizant to not put up something that doesn't appeal to the consumer and hear about it. But I don't know. I know what you're saying is on the approval on the front end, but if they put up something that's pretty ugly, they're going to be right there videotaping outside saying, this is what it looks like.
So one of the things that's in the draft ordinance that may resolve that issue or not necessarily raise that issue is that these are not tents next to other properties. These are tents on, or not, I'm sorry, not tents. These are structures on the public right of way. And that's the only place that they're really that's the only place that they're really allowed, the same as the tables. So the times that we do hear a lot of, not near me is when it was in that private property adjacent to residential. There's not a lot of those opportunities here when it's the same place where the chairs are. Again, that's just one aspect of it, but we can always, of course, address that any way that the committee sees fit.
Yeah.
If we do this through a temporary use process, there's a notice requirement to neighboring properties. Do you remember how far it is and how many days in advance?
I think it's 14 days, it's 250 feet. So it's a minimum of 14 days, 250 feet.
And I don't think a temporary use is overly burdensome on a restaurant. I think, a more formal ARC process is probably too much process, but if we wanted something in the middle, I think a temporary use it's not an uncommon occurrence in our community and for a lot of our establishments or institutions.
Yeah, I fully agree with Mike on this score. I really don't want to over process this, but certainly making folks aware of it and hearing them out, whatever their concern might be. I think it's appropriate that that we do that as a board and the village do that on behalf of its residents. So, yeah, I think that's a nice approach, recognizing that we're, as our board, not going to be receiving, full-blown professional architectural drawings. I assume they'll be pretty basic. Maybe a photograph or two, but presumably that would be it. And I'd be plenty satisfied with that.
There will also need to be a site plan, whether it's at that, the temporary use or not. So I think you'll see that as well, which will be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I don't really think that's an undue burden, and I think there's benefit to it.
I think, again, it allows us to maybe strike the balance between trusting our staff on they're working through with the restaurants, but then just providing the public the opportunity and also signaling that these are meant to be temporary use structures. That we be permitted under temporary use permitting. It just somehow maybe signals to the community what the intention is. So that's my thought on that.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, Kate.
So, Trustee Sullivan, is that okay with you as well? As a sort of, because I know we're not voting on anything. Does that give you, Mr. Stein, some direction then on?
Absolutely. It gives me very clear direction as to where we want to go on this. So I think the next part of this process is up to the committee. I don't know if you want me to present an ordinance back to you or if we just address what the discussion was here and the direction and bring it back to the village board at some point. Probably won't be the next meeting. I got some other things going on, but it'll be pretty soon. But that's up to the committee. If we want, if we want to meet again on this, we can. I don't know that it's necessary, but that's up to you guys.
My thought would be not necessary. I think we are all pretty much in agreement. And as long as the staff, as neither you nor Mr. Freeman thinks that this is a terrible idea, and it doesn't sound like you think it is a terrible way to go. I would think rather than slowing it down, we take it back to the village board and say, here's what we discussed and see with the overall, and not look for another meeting to review the ordinance. Does that sound okay to the other two trustees?
Sure. I mean, there's no real urgency to this, but let's get this decided and done.
Yep.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Then I think that concludes that agenda item, which takes us to, I forgot to say, is there any public comment or anyone on Teams who would like to make a comment on this agenda item around outside structures?
There is no comments on YouTube Live.
Okay. I will not miss part of a remote board meeting. I can't seem to remember that. Okay. Agenda item 5 is new business. Is there any new business?
So we actually do have a little bit of new business, and Mr. Sievertson's on the call. Mr. Sievertson did a very quick survey of some of the liquor licensees that sell the packaged goods for the extended hours. I think only one of them was even open past 10 o'clock. And the other ones said, I get maybe the one that is, it says maybe I get 1 or 2 requests. So I don't think the businesses are really interested, but I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Sievertson to give you the specifics and the details on that.
Yeah, thank you. So I did reach out to a few of the packaged goods liquor licensees. Talked to CVS. They actually close at 10 p.m., so they would not be interested. Spoke to the Fresh Market. They close at 9 p.m., so they would not be interested. Talked to both of the Walgreens locations. The one in downtown is open until 11. However, they don't see much sales at all past 9 o'clock. So they didn't think it would be beneficial to them. And then the Walgreens on 3232 at Eden's Plaza, they close at 10, so they would not be interested. So those are the businesses that I've heard back from.
So that still leaves, I think, both Juuls, but I think at this point, I think if the businesses aren't interested, I don't know that we want to obviously extend our regulations. That's going to not be, they're not going to be taken advantage of. But again, we can do any further kind of study we would like to do, but in at least my opinion on this, I think the matter should be closed.
Actually, what time did the Juuls close? I didn't even think about that. Do we know? Anybody know offhand?
I think the Jewel at Plaza de Loza closes at 9 or 10 latest. I'm pretty sure they close at 9 or 10. The one on Green Bay Road is open later than that for sure. Maybe even, I don't know, but I'm not sure I'm right on that. And would also be Foremost that would be affected by this?
So Foremost is the only other, is really the only other licensee that could fit into this, but they don't have the same category as Jewel or CVS. They're their own standalone category that is actually, once that license is no longer renewed, it no longer exists in the village. It's a straight, solely liquor store without any other kind of grocery license, and we've gotten rid of those. So and I'm not sure that they even fit the bill here of what we're trying to do with a Jewel and a CVS. So we didn't inquire from them, and
and a quick Google search, the Foremost closes at 9 p.m. anyways, and the Jewel on Green Bay closes at midnight.
Midnight, okay.
So that's the only one.
All night for me, but not for everybody, I guess. So.
What's that?
I said it was all night. That's all night for me at midnight.
But for that, this would be a regulation for one particular location that hasn't asked for it at this point.
So
To be clear, Jeff, that one location is the Jewel on Green Bay Road.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Now what?
okay. So trustees, I guess this leaves it to discussion for us on whether we think this is worth staff time and committee member time to continue to investigate whether or not we had a resident request to look into this. We've looked into it some. We don't seem to have a really hue and a cry from our businesses. We haven't heard from other residents on this issue. So I guess the question is, do we continue to pursue this, or at this point, are we essentially going to not pursue this? Is that where we are, Mr. Stein?
Lucas,
That's correct.
did you call the Jewel on Green Bay?
I'm sorry, I have not yet called the Jewel on Green Bay. With the Jewel and Walgreens, it's a little difficult to get a hold of the right person. So I don't have like a corporate contact with Jewel, which is typically the better person to reach out to than the store manager, who they typically change out fairly frequently. So I haven't been able to reach anyone yet.
I only say that just because in our last meeting, it was specifically cited, somebody said, why can't I get this at Jewel between 10 and midnight? So does it make sense, Lucas or somebody, just to send a letter to Jewel Corporate and say, we've had a resident express interest. If you'd like to talk further, contact Lucas, contact me. And if we don't hear from them, we don't hear. I mean, we tried our best.
I think that's absolutely fair. We can still reach out to them. If for whatever reason Jewel says this is the greatest thing ever, it's going to raise our sales, and your sales tax is going to go through the roof, we'll bring it back to the committee in a formal way. But otherwise, if Jewel says what I think they're going to say is we don't get a lot of people coming after 9, informally, I will let the committee know if that's an acceptable way to kind of deal with this.
I think that's fine. I think that, Mr. Sullivan, that's a good recommendation. Let's make one last effort to reach out to the Jewel, which seems to be the only place that might be open till midnight. And then I don't know that's going to require a special committee meeting unless we hear something that changes where we are today.
Correct.
And if they do say sales tax is going to go through the roof, shame on us. We all should be fired. Happened just this earlier.
And Jeff, will you then prepare a report back to the board and what?
Yeah, so no matter what, you'll get something from me, but if it's, like I said, as expected, it'll be by being an informal, is that we don't need a meeting. I will just prepare a finalized report saying, here's the findings, and no further actions recommended, and no further action be taken until otherwise directed. So, or I'll say we need a meeting.
Okay. Okay, so thank you for that report, Mr. Severson. And we move on to agenda item 6, which is to see if there's any public comment from YouTube or
Nothing on YouTube.
comment on items not on the agenda.
Nothing on YouTube.
No one else is watching with comments.
Nope.
Okay, that takes us to agenda item 7, which is to ask for a motion to adjourn. Thanks, everybody, by the way. Some good discussions today. Really appreciate everybody. Another committee meeting where, as Mr. Stein says, hardest working committee out there.
That's it. So moved.
And a second, please?
Second.
Okay, can we have a roll call vote on the motion, please?
Trustee Barrow.
Adjourned.
Trustee Sullivan.
Yeah,
I think we know what you meant.
you got it. You got it.
Aye.
Chair Jaya.
Aye,
Thank you all.
everybody.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.